Salarpuria Sattva. Trust, it's what we build. Presents the Realty Debate with Manisha Natarajan.
Demonetization is now behind us, and the big policy move was meant to nab the black money hoarders and also bring an end to bribery and corruption in India. But are we on our way to a corruption-free India or anywhere close to it? An EY report on corruption, which was done a couple of years ago, finds that there are two sectors in India which are most vulnerable to corruption. And really no prize is there for guessing that real estate is right at the top along with infrastructure. Welcome everyone to the Corruption in Real Estate debate, and my panel today are leaders who've made a mark in this business against all odds and against all corruption and continue to fight that battle, hoping for the tide to turn. Irfan Razak, CMD Prestige Group and Chairman CREDAI. Rohit Gera, Managing Director Gera Developments, one of the crusaders in real estate whose fight for doing business ethically is quite well known. Ghulam Zia, Executive Director, Advisory Retail and Hospitality, Knight Frank India. Subodh Kumar, former Municipal Commissioner. Vineet Relia, Managing Director, Sare Homes. Prashant Solomon, MD Chintels India and Treasurer CREDAI NCR. Shailesh Pathak, CEO and Managing Partner, City Infra Capital LLP. So he will speak for both infrastructure and real estate. Both the industries and sectors that he handles are right at the top of that corruption list. Okay, I'm going to set the stage, gentlemen, for this discussion, citing findings from the EY report on bribery and corruption. Now, what does a system infested with bribery do? First of all, it puts a strain on ethical behavior. Alarmingly, this report found that a large number of respondents interviewed appear to be comfortable, and this is, of course, pre that big move in October 2016, to be comfortable or were aware of unethical business conduct. And they were also part of it. They were also willing to take the easy way out. More than half of the respondents agreed that it is the lack of will to obtain licenses and approvals, the right way, which leads to bribery and corruption. Challenging times ahead, around 83% of the respondents felt, and of course has been proven time and again, that it does impact FDI negatively. And everyone said that there has to be greater enforcement of law for corruption to be curbed. Now, are we in that situation? Mr. Modi's demonetization move and his further announcement that he will now go after Benami holdings is, of course, hugely welcome, all aimed at going after those people who have stacked away ill-gotten wealth in real estate. But what about corruption within real estate and when you are in that business? So let's get the ground reality. Mr. Razak, the first question always to you, sir. With your experience, you are the perfect person to tell us what has changed for your business.
Manisha, you always make me the opening batsman, and the bowling is always.
Tell me, sir, who has more experience than you on this panel in doing real estate? I will then take away that opening batsman position from you.
Yeah, see, now the thing is, Manisha, I keep this introspection amongst the fraternity, amongst all of our stakeholders. Now, as things stand, you see, now it's very easy to say there is corruption, there is bribery, there is all of this. And what happens is, wherever there is a license Raj, this is bound to happen. Now, the thing is, it's not that anybody is giving you anything out of the law, because anything that is done off the which is not in the law, which is illegal, will not stand the test of time, which will not stand. Today with RTI and everybody else, and we just can't. No officer or no official or nobody else can give you something that you're not entitled to. So basically what we are asking for is something that you're entitled to within the framework of law. Now, in spite of all that, why is this sort of expectation that to move a file that you need to see that you put some wheels onto the file? Now, that is the sad part of it. Fortunately, today, we can very proudly say, listen, I don't have the money.
Okay.
But still those expectations don't stop.
Wow. Okay. All right. So there's been a little bit of a silver lining as well for real estate. Well, we don't have that cash to give anymore. Rohit Gera, what's going on? I mean, we'll come to dividing the various stages of corruption later, but overall, has there been any, one was hoping that there would at least be a lot of fear now, that, anybody asking for bribery in the form of cash or any other gifts would now be extremely worried, seeing that there is immense intention at the top to nab those who are going to indulge in any of such practices. But have you seen any change at all?
Manisha, the quick answer to that is absolutely not. There is no change whatsoever. Yes, there is one change. Instead of accepting only currency notes, they are now willing to accept gold, and they're also willing to give you credit to pay them. So we've tried to say, look, there's no money, there's no cash. And the response is, well, doesn't matter, we trust you. You're going nowhere, we're going nowhere. So absolutely, there's no change on the ground whatsoever. Until and unless a tremendous degree of fear is brought in, this is not going to stop. Look, this is generational. We've been through generations of Indians who've gotten so used to that it's okay to bribe. It's my birthright to collect. Just one move of replacing currency isn't going to change that overnight. It's going to require a series of measures, and this is just the first in a direction. This isn't even the first measure, in my opinion.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to go to Vineet Relia next. Vineet, what's your own assessment of the situation? I'm just surprised to hear that it is so blatant as to say that, hey, if you don't have cash, doesn't matter, wait up. I mean, you're not going anywhere and I'm not going anywhere. But we still need to get our cut.
So, Manisha, I think, while you can change currency and notes, you can't change people, right? And, yes, this has been so the pressure is psychological on people, but what we hear from consultants and architects and, various people who really get the approvals done because we don't indulge in it ourselves, is that, it's, the fear was there for some time, but it seemed to have gone away. And the sad part is that today you have a huge fear psychosis which is building in actually genuine customers. So all the talk about Benami and a whole lot of real estate being, income tax being after real estate buyers and things like that, it's actually having a negative impact that the bad PR is affecting actual customers and investors who are wanting to, get into buying things.
Prashant Solomon, has that been your experience as well, that the graft has simply not stopped and the fear, little bit fear which came in right at the beginning is also not there anymore?
Yes, I agree that in the beginning when this move took place, there was fear initially. But as Rohit had said earlier, that there are different ways in which these things are done now. But Manisha, I think one of the solutions to this problem, because everybody knows that we have this serious problem of corruption.
We'll come to the solutions, but I just need to know that as of now, things haven't changed.
As of now, things I don't really say have changed.
At all.
In a fundamental way.
So,
yes.
so all the fear, all the long lines, all that scarcity of cash, Shailesh Pathak, really hasn't changed that basic core of that I am going to get nabbed if I take a bribe. That's not changed.
Manisha, it's a bit like what Mahatma Gandhi said in reply to a question, what do you think of Western civilization? He said it's too early to tell.
Okay.
So similarly in demonetization, it's too early to tell because this is just the first step. I'm pretty much sure that in the next 6 months, the Benami owners are going to run for their lives. If we really look at this entire thing, it's about the person who's building the home and the person who's buying the home. And the person that's buying a home for, let's say, 40 lakhs is actually paying nearly 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs for corruption. Now, the builder doesn't want to pay for this corruption. The builder would be very happy with an IRCTC kind of app on his mobile where he applies for clearances and gets them.
Right.
So, obviously, this money is going somewhere. Now, there's a school of thought that a lot of political money is behind builders, not on this panel, but others. So, the builder is not really the director of the movie, he's an actor in the movie.
Okay.
The other point of view says that, look, Singapore was as corrupt as this 35 years ago. And it's a continuous grinding at the wheel. And in the next 2-3 years, we will get somewhere.
Okay. That's a good hope. Mr. Subodh Kumar, are you in agreement with the panelists that nothing has changed, but it's also too early to expect change? I would think that such a massive move of demonetization, the Prime Minister going out there again and again and saying, I will get the corrupt, I will get the black money hoarders, I will make this country corruption free. How is it that both at the political level and the bureaucracy level, it could go down right to the Patwari level, things haven't changed an iota? There's no fear either.
I fully agree with the other panelists. Demonetization only brought the money, black money, in the banking circulation right now. But generation of money has nothing to do with the demonetization. Generation takes place as usual. Bribery, those who give any kind of sanction anywhere, whether it's government, whether it's a politician, a bureaucrat, I think bribe taking is a rule rather than exception. And nothing has been done as yet to check that.
Okay.
If further steps are taken in that direction, perhaps something will change. But giving sanction right now is a monopoly by the civic bodies. Any monopoly has its own pitfalls and leads to corruption. I believe them when they say there is no change on the ground.
Wow. So you're saying giving sanctions is still a monopoly until that change, generation of black money won't change. That's fairly depressing, Ghulam Zia, isn't it? I mean, to here you have a business which is crumbling under the weight of demonetization. Things weren't looking great any which way. And now you have a buyer sitting on the fence even more. And on the other side, on ease of doing business or a corruption-free business is not something that the developers are getting at all.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true because as you just mentioned, the environment was in any case bad for last 2-3 years. The consumers were not very comfortable getting into real estate, buying, signing the dotted line, and this happened. And well, most of us were fine with this demonetization, expecting things to change drastically and to bring in clarity and so on. But as Mr. Kumar mentioned, the monopoly that we're talking about is something which will continue to harass the real estate developer, and will obviously, the burden will be on the consumers at last to pay for whatever has happened during the course in terms of corruption, etc. So till such times we actually get out of that manual intervention of permissions and licenses at every stage, unless and until we get on to, as somebody mentioned, that if it is on an app where you're actually downloading your permissions, etc., without any intervention, well, that would be the day, that would be the utopian real estate that we all would want to get into. But I guess it's still a pipe dream.
Still a pipe dream. So let's just, break this dialogue down into 2 stages. I think let's just go back. Everyone is talking about Benami transactions. A lot of articles since that demonetization move have essentially come on the fact that literally painting this black picture that most black money goes into either land or real estate. Well, let's just stick to land. Shailesh Pathak, there was this whole statement made by the Prime Minister saying Benami Act. But that needs digitized records. That needs some amount of transparency. You can't go after land records in the current form. And we all know that a lot of transactions in land are still very, very cash-based. So let's start with that point and say, how can you clean that up?
So let's talk about land. As you know, Manisha, I keep saying TLC is all we need, taxes, land and clearances. So within the land sphere, demonetization has already put the fear of God in a lot of Benami landholders.
It has?
It has. And what typically happens is the elites go and buy the peripheral land around a city. So let's say Gurgaon, let's say Bangalore, let's say Chennai. A lot of the elites would have bought all this land and would expect that land to give them windfall profits. And they would have bought it at X, and today the current land price is 10X. If this price comes down to 5X because of demonetization and because of the fight against Benami, people on this panel, the developers on this panel, are already going to get the critical input much cheaper. Okay. Now, you asked how to do it. Actually, it's very simple. Every property tax assessee has a land record. And according to me, the simplest is just link it with Aadhaar. So if I have bought land in the name of Ramu, my servant, and I know that Ramu's Aadhar is going to be there, I'm probably going to rush and do a distress sale, and this is going to bring down prices. I see this happening in the next 2 years.
Mr. Razak, there's been a counter theory that I've heard, and I think at one time from you as well, that developers, when they buy land, do not buy it in cash at all, because it doesn't help you at all, right? If you're looking for funds, you need to show the right value of land. So explain to me how this affects your business now, that you know, cash from land transactions is likely to come down dramatically.
Typically, any developer who's organized and or a listed player has never bought land with cash. I mean, I can say that for ourselves also, because land we buy from companies and who are they're monetizing their land assets, or the land comes to us in the form of joint development agreements where the landowner likes to cash in on the upside of the development.
Okay.
Now, where cash is used in land basically is in agricultural lands, where people are aggregating lands, like rightly said by my earlier panelist, that on the peripheral agricultural lands are there. In fact, in now Karnataka, there's another law that doesn't allow anybody except an agriculturalist to buy agricultural land. So a non-agriculturalist cannot buy agricultural land. So what happens really typically is you have to depend on that agriculturalist to convert the land from agricultural to non-agricultural use, or transfer that land into some other name who's your nominee, and then transfer it to none of us get into those sorts of transactions because there are a lot of pitfalls into it. So what really happens is somebody does that work, somebody packages the whole thing for you, and then ultimately you are paying a premium, and you're paying a premium fully above board because, like you said, funds are also required, and we have no access to those type of funds. It's only all official funds that we get. And then we buy the land. So that's why in real estate, we can't draw one picture for everybody and for everything. There are different pockets that handle these things differently. And as far as wherever developers are buying land for developing and serious construction, I don't think cash is being used for buying land. It's mostly official, because then again, if I'm dumping in cash to buy land, my cost goes down. And then if my cost goes down, how do I pay the taxes rightly?
Absolutely. Okay, Rohit Gera, come in here and just let's understand this whole aggregation business. You know, a lot of money was always made traditionally in real estate by this whole conversion of agricultural land to other use, right? And a lot of cash transactions happened till a certain level where it all started turning white when larger players started to come in. My question to you is that isn't that a basic, even if you were to go back in the chain and stop cash transaction, I think the easiest would be to have some simple master plans to say, hey, this land can be easily converted. You don't need to go through those big loopholes and to convert, or hurdles to convert. And that could itself take away that big momentum or gain you would get in conversion.
Well, Manisha, I think you're absolutely right. One area where the rise in value that actually takes place is certainly on conversion when you go from, let's say, acres to square feet, right? The other big area is when any kind of large-scale infrastructure then comes in and affects the land. This infrastructure is really then controlled by the politicians and the bureaucrats. So I think having inside information to where this kind of infrastructure is going to come in gives people a disproportionate advantage. And I think that's the other area which we so far haven't touched upon, apart from what you said, that when the conversion takes place. But you're absolutely right. If conversion is there for the asking, then there's no value differential that will pop up. You're right.
So let's start with the solutions on how do you stop this part of corruption. I mean, this is basically a buyer to seller sort of a corruption with some bribery going to even levels at Patwari level. And it starts to, state ministers, and it's a state subject. curious question came to my mind, and I'm going to ask ask Subodhji. Subodhji, do you think that the reason why there's so much corruption in real estate is also because it's a state subject? Or is that keep making it too simple?
Actually, it can be tackled. You convert agricultural land to non-agriculture, they demand only on the periphery. So any metropolitan town, any major city, government can always say that within a certain distance from that, NA will be automatic. In the sense that like you take IEM for the industry, you just say that deposit X money per square feet rate is so much, and you have the automatic permission. You can take your receipt from the internet itself, I mean. There is no reason, there is nothing to be seen in that whether they should be converted to NA or not. Nobody going to convert any agricultural land to NA in a very remote area where development is not coming. So it's a question of will, it's a question of intention. It can be done.
All right. Okay, yes, on the state question, I mean, anything that I read veers to the simple thing that, you know, it's one of those places where everybody thinks that they can make money, right? And politicians too, I'm not going to name anybody else, but so what is really going on? Is it a state subject and therefore it's going to be harder to clean up? Is that what you're saying, Shailesh?
So India is like Europe, right? We have our Germany and we have our Greece. And the Chief Minister of Greece is certainly more corrupt than the Chief Minister of Germany, which is why developers will rather go to Germany than Greece. So Indian Chief Ministers, some of them are very honest and far-sighted, and they will use the RERA provisions to clean up this act now that there is enabling environment from the Government of India.
Okay. Okay. Do you believe that, Vineet Relia? I mean, you worked across India. Do you believe that the levels of corruption are very different in different states? And you would naturally move or gravitate towards businesses or states where you know, business is cleaner?
No, I don't agree with that comment. It's very important for us to go wherever there is potential. You know, there's got to be economic drivers, there's got to be demand. So I think as seasoned developers, we go wherever there is a demand, and then, you know, the demand is key first. Now, if a state is doing well, or if the chief minister is corrupt, non-corrupt, that doesn't really matter there. The first priority is there's got to be demand, and the market's got to be able to absorb the kind of capacity we want to produce there. So I think that's the key driver. But yes, obviously, it does help to have a cleaner environment because it leads to a lot of transparency and it leads to you managing your projects better.
Okay.
But,
okay,
you know, like I said,
there's
we
a
do
large
business
corporate which has actually exited a whole market, and in this case is Mahindra exiting Chennai. They've stopped aggregating land there because it's just become so difficult to do business there. So, Prashant, I mean,
yeah, so Manisha,
is that not correct that, I mean, you would not go?
No, see, let me say one thing. You know, just like there's competition between India and other countries, similarly, there's also competition between states. So the kind of economy that we are now entering into, we have competition within states. So if a state wants to draw large investments from, say, developers or from large companies that want to set up their factories or offices in that particular state, they will have to move along with the market trend. And one of the best ways of doing that is by transparency. Now, I feel that what we're talking about right now, it's kind of like, to use a medical analogy, you know, it's like Ayurveda versus allopathic. Allopathic deals with symptoms, whereas Ayurveda gets to the root. So what we have to look at here, what is the root cause of this problem? It's basically lack of transparency and blatant discretionary powers of the various government bodies. Now, as
which
we
is
heard
what
earlier,
Mr. Subodh Kumar said.
Exactly.
I mean, you're leaving the power in somebody's hand.
If you have a particular area of land that has been earmarked by the government that this is where development can happen, developers should not have to get licenses and go through all that procedure. And even